So, some of you may know Saluzzo is an important town in Piedmont, not far from Turin, about 60 miles from, or perhaps kilometers from Turin. The mayor of Saluzzo may correct me on that. And the reason why we chose Saluzzo is because this city that is very close to the French border played a role, a very important role, in saving the lives of quite a number of Jews. To understand how that happened, you have to go back to the military situation during the war, when the Italian army controlled a number of territories in Greece, in the Balkans, in Yugoslavia, and in southern France. After the collapse of the Italian government on the 8th of September, back in 1943, what happened is that the Jews who had sought the protection of the Italian army were left at the mercy of the invading German forces. Many of them tried to escape. Those who were in southern France tried to escape into Italy. As they crossed the Alps, they got into the area of Saluzzo. To tell us more about what happened and what is done today to reminisce and remember what happened in those years, we have the mayor of Saluzzo. The mayor of Saluzzo is Allemano, and he has come with a delegation from Saluzzo, and there is going to be with him also Sandro Capellaro. Sandro Capellaro is the organizer of a very big number of events that take place every year to commemorate what happened in the territory of Saluzzo back in 1943. So without further ado, I welcome to the podium the mayor of Saluzzo, and please welcome him with a round of applause. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my English is not very good, but I try to speak your language, and I rely on your mercy. Well, first I thanks Consul Dr. Monti and Dr. Marchetti, the director of Cultural Institute, for the invitation. Two words about Saluzzo. Saluzzo is a very beautiful town. I invite you to visit. It's a medieval town, about 40 miles from Turin, and near the French border, and was found around the year 1000, and has been a small state and played an important role between the 12th and the 16th century. It has kept its historical charm, and again I invite you to visit, because with his castle, his palaces, and his street, cobblestone cobblestone. Well, is a nice place to know the historical medieval town, to breathe historical charm. Well, the link between our trip and Saluzzo is because when the Jews in 1943 escaped from the South France looking for a shelter, they reached our area, because we are a few kilometers from the French border. Well, the trip was a tragedy. We are in September 1943. It was a tragedy, and 350 people among the 1,000 people who walked across the mountain were captured and kept to a concentration camp, were died. That's because after the 8th September, when the army collapsed, things became worse dramatically in Italy. And the Italians split in two. On one side, freedom fighters, the partisan, and on the other side, those who was really supporter of Mussolini ideology and those who wanted to please the Nazis. Well, the fact is that after the 8th September, everyone was personally involved in the war. The war was not far, was inside. And everyone faced the scandalous racial law. Fortunately, in our mountaineering area, good people are honest. So most of them helped the Jews and put their life at risk. Between them, also the priest, who helped the children, Chaya, Roth and Gitta, Fajerstein, and saved the children. The priest Francesco Brondello. In the end, in our area, we paid a tremendous price in the Second World War. Died 15,500 people, civil and war died. Among them, 500 Jews. All in all, 2.5% of the entire population. So something really, really heavy. Saluzzo was heavily involved in this tragedy. 29 of the 45 Jews living in Saluzzo after the 8th September were deported and died. And is the highest percentage of Jews victims of the war related to the number of citizens. So very, very bad rank. Well, we in the last 15 years, we want to save the memory, and we save the memory in many ways. We have laid down memorial plates outside the door where the Jews lived, Stolperstein in German. Every year in September, we walk across the mountain as the Jews did, and we did this travel with Chaya and Gitta a few years ago. And we involve young people in making sure that they will not forget the tragedy. Now we want to show our sympathy in Chicago to Chaya and Gitta. That's because we think that it's necessary to turn individual events into shared emotion and value. We think it is necessary to work together for a future of peace and tolerance, and we think that the journey may be as important as its destination. Thank you for your attention.
Buonasera a tutti, io vi chiedo scusa, ma non sono inglese, quindi ho due damigelle qui che mi aiuteranno. Non spaventatevi perché la prima parte la leggerò io in italiano, ma ci saranno delle slide proiettate sullo schermo.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I don't speak Italian, but the two translators will be helping me. And the first part is I will be speaking in Italian, but there are slides that are translated into English. And after that, Silvana will be reading the rest of the presentation.
Voglio anche spiegarvi come avverrà la presentazione. Io leggerò la prima parte perché questo è un progetto che è nato nella mia associazione, l'associazione Giorgio Biandrata, che ha avuto come partner molti comuni e naturalmente il comune di Saluzzo è stato il comune pilota.
This presentation began from the Association Culturale of Giorgio Biandrata and in Saluzzo.
Quindi la prima parte la leggerò io, chiuderò, poi ci sarà Silvana Greco, che è un insegnante che lavora in stretto contatto con la mia associazione, e chiuderò il primo progetto e poi parleremo del secondo.
So the first part of the presentation I'll read, and then the second part with the slides in English, and then Silvana will do the second part of the presentation, and then we'll close with the first project.
Ok. Sono Sandro Capellaro, responsabile dei progetti dell'Associazione Culturale Giorgio Biandrata di Saluzzo. Saluzzo è una cittadina della regione Piemonte, quasi nel nord-ovest dell'Italia, proprio ai piedi delle Alpi che la separano dalla Francia. Questo particolare, scusate ma vedo pochissimo, questo particolare non è indifferente per la storia che ripercorreremo assieme. Nessuno di noi appartiene al popolo ebreo, eppure siamo venuti qua a parlare di una storia che è e potrebbe sembrare eminentemente una storia di ebrei e delle terre in cui vivevano o si trovavano a vivere. Questo dopo molto peregrinare, ma questo solo all'apparenza, perché io ci tengo a sottolineare che questa è anche la nostra storia, la storia di noi italiani, del nostro comportamento durante il regime fascista, quindi la nostra indagine, la nostra ricerca storica è naturalmente limitata da un piccolo territorio, ma penso che quel che è avvenuto in un ambito così ristretto e così limitato è avvenuto in Italia e nel mondo. Quindi è una pagina di storia universale. E forse qui sta la risposta a quella domanda che ci siamo posti nel progetto di ricerca che abbiamo presentato. Perché alcuni cittadini e amministratori pubblici sono spinti a dedicare tempo, studi, iniziative varie a delle tematiche storiche che non hanno vissuto e che per diversi anni sono state accantonate dalla memoria collettiva. Forse è proprio il tentativo di comprendere meglio chi siamo, come viviamo, quali scelte facciamo nella nostra vita. Ci sono sempre infatti scelte da compiere nelle nostre vite, scelte di bene e scelte di male, e penso che fare memoria vuol davvero dire assumersi una responsabilità, prendere posizione, combattere le discriminazioni. Ricordare non è una condizione accessoria, ma un modo per custodire la nostra storia, e noi ricorderemo anche dopo la scomparsa dell'ultimo testimone. In sintesi estrema, questo è stato il messaggio che ci ha lasciato un testimone eccezionale come Primo Levi: chi dimentica Auschwitz è pronto a rifarlo. L'associazione che rappresento si chiama Giorgio Biandrata. Giorgio Biandrata era un medico del 1516, nato a Saluzzo, un medico protestante, antitrinitario, e per le sue posizioni religiose è dovuto fuggire dall'Italia e ripararsi in Transilvania, verso l'est. Insieme ad alcuni membri dell'associazione abbiamo dato attuazione ad alcuni progetti storici. in collaborazione, come ho detto prima, con il comune di Saluzzo e altri comuni, enti e istituzioni. Io però tengo a precisarlo, noi non siamo storici, quindi per questi nostri progetti ci siamo basati su fonti storiche, su lavori di ricerca storica condotti in particolare da alcuni storici e studiosi. In particolare voglio qui ricordare la professoressa Adriana Muncinelli, che per prima ha condotto questo studio sulla storia del popolo ebraico a Saluzzo, dal 1938 al 1945. Diverse sono state le sue pubblicazioni, in particolare voglio ricordare quella più completa e esaustiva, Eve Pietruzza della memoria. Un altro storico che ha fornito le basi indispensabili ai nostri progetti è stato Alberto Cavagliò. La sua è una ricerca mai conclusa, ma è stato il suo primo libro, Nella notte straniera, in cui ripercorre le triste vicende degli ebrei di Saint-Martin-Vésubie, scritto in età giovanissima e ristampato per la quinta volta nel 2012 illuminare il nostro lavoro. Però accanto a loro naturalmente ci sono altre numerose pubblicazioni in Italia che ripercorrono quegli anni da punti di vista diversi, e per noi che ogni anno con entusiasmo rinnoviamo i nostri appuntamenti con la memoria e con la storia, anche e soprattutto, e questo lo tengo a precisare, con le giovani generazioni, è indispensabile l'aggiornamento storico e storiografico. I progetti che questa sera vogliamo presentarvi e che come associazione portiamo avanti a Saluzzo sono due: le tracce del ricordo e attraverso la memoria.
American scholar Elizabeth Bettini wrote a book entitled It Happened in Italy. It highlights that not all Italians risked their lives to save Jewish people, but there were acts of remarkable heroism. Some people were not unresponsive. They did help the Jewish people, and these people could survive.
Al termine di questa relazione mi piace concludere con un messaggio di speranza. È vero che molte persone, molti ebrei avrebbero potuto essere salvati. La nostra piccola Saluzzo, con i suoi 29 ebrei uccisi ad Auschwitz su 45 residenti, è una piccola lezione di storia universale che ci deve far riflettere. Se dunque non è vero il detto "italiani brava gente", non è però neanche vero il contrario. E se è vero che le leggi razziste del fascismo sono una vergogna della storia nazionale, è anche vero che ci furono persone che non rimasero indifferenti e che, anche se non seppero organizzarsi in modo unitario, cercarono di fare qualcosa per gli altri, anche a costo della propria vita. A noi oggi spetta di continuare su questo cammino di partecipazione e di coinvolgimento, che poi è semplicemente esercizio di democrazia e di giustizia. Grazie.
The theme chosen by the United Nations for this International Day is courage. It took a lot of courage for many Italians to help us. There were others who didn't have the courage, but it took a lot of courage for those who helped us and for those who did not talk about it and did not tell the Germans about us. We started out our journey through the mountains from Saint-Martin, as you've heard. For 3 days, we walked across the mountains, One night we slept in a convent outside, and one night we slept in soldiers' barracks outside, and they made some soup for us. We arrived on the Italian side in Valdieri, and lo and behold, a couple of days later, the Germans were there. And 349 people were taken to Borgos and Dalmazio. They were taken to the concentration camp. Our mother, who was a dynamo, she woke us up in the middle of the night and she told us, we have to run. And we ran back to the mountains. We circled all day the mountains. They were treacherous mountains, really treacherous. And we circled until we finally came to a farmhouse. Talk to each other, and then when we want the other person to take part of the story, we say, okay, it's your turn. And so I'm going to, a little bit. So Gitta started with courage. It was declared that this has to be the motto of people who want to help other people in danger. And certainly we were in danger. And courage was primary. Fear was next to primary. And fear meant that you have to have the courage to overcome the fear. The person who gave us shelter in the mountain, her name was Andreina Blua. And Andreina Blua, she was frightened. She knew that there were people around her who were also hiding Jews. And they didn't call them Jews, they called them stranieri, because the Germans had decided that Italians wouldn't know what Jews looked like. And so if you see a straniero, then you have to know that you have to report him in. But they did worse. They burned their houses. It's not the Germans who burned the houses. Sometimes the fascists and sometimes the next door neighbors. For us to be hidden 6 months in 2 cavas took a great deal of courage, because Andreina Blua lost her first house in fire. It was her neighbors, apparently, according to her granddaughter, which we met many, many years later. Her granddaughter told us that her neighbors were jealous that she was harboring Jewish people, so they burned down her house. These were Italian neighbors, and here we have some good people as well. So, courage, fear, and hope. Hope is the birthright of the Jewish people. Hope has always been our forte. It has been in our writings, it has been in our prayers, and it has been in our when you sing the Hatikva. That was hope. And I need to go back to Gitta's telling you about staying overnight in the mountains. Because What I knew about hope, I experienced in the mountains when on the third night we were 800 people lying on a plateau in the Alps, and we were all lying down to sleep. And I was looking up in the sky, and there were stars, and a young boy's voice started to sing. And he sang in Yiddish. And he sang Eufen Pripitschik. And I cannot tell you, there could not have been a dry eye, but neither could have been a feeling of hope. If this can happen in this night, we will be here forever. Let me describe a little bit the cava we stayed. They say in Italy that 1943-44 was the worst winter that Italy had. We were staying in a cava, which is a shed that only the mountain people go up when they want to take care of their cows and muttons or whatever during the summer months. And in the wintertime, it stays abandoned. And we stayed in this cava. I don't think it was bigger than 8 by 8, and we were 7 people in there, and we slept on straw mats, and God knows what else. And we survived. How? I don't know. We had no real clothes. We had some hand-me-down. We left Saint-Martin in the height of summer with the clothes we had on, which was summertime. And sure enough, we survived that winter. We did rely on Andriana. She brought us food once a month, and she really did. And I and another young boy, we would go down to the village of Valdieri, and we were petrified about once or twice a week, and we walked, I would think about 6 hours back and forth, and we would pick up whatever green or fruit or vegetables we could get, and we would bring it up to the cava. It was a fright. I always had this fear in my throat. It never left me until the end of the war. She is not going to tell you the story unless I introduce the story. But there is a story that was unforgettable that Gitta had to survive when she did go down the mountain from Valdieri, and it wasn't Valdieri, and she went down the mountain to go buy tobacco in Valdieri and to buy whatever else she could find. So she did go, and tell us what happened then. On your way down the mountain and up. I went up the mountains, and part of our family had changed cavas that day, and I volunteered to go up. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun was bright, and I volunteered to go up to be an emissary, and lo and behold, it got dark, like half an hour later. I don't remember exactly. And I decided I couldn't go on. I saw lights flickering in the far, far away, and I don't know if anybody walked on mountains, but distances is hard. It's very hard to imagine how things are, how far they are. I had dilapidated shoes, boots. I was wearing a short skirt. Eventually, things got shorter and shorter because I grew. And I believe I had some knee socks. And I tried to walk, and the walk got iced over like a sheet of ice, and I couldn't walk down. I decided to walk down. And I stepped on the side. On one side of the mountain, it was a sheer drop. On the other side was going up. So I stepped on the side of the little walk, and lo and behold, my shoe got stuck in the snow. The snow was this high, and I looked for the shoe in the worst ways, and I finally found two halves, and I didn't know what to do. I sat down, and it was so peaceful and so bright. The stars were out, but it was dark, and I didn't really know what to do. And I sat down, and I thought, okay, this is it. I can't go on. But something was watching over me and wouldn't let me just stop. And I slid down that mountain with the shoe on my lap, the two halves of the shoe on my lap. And I came down, and then I heard the dogs barking, so I knew I was close to something. I finally was petrified to knock on a farmer's door, but I did, and he let me stay there. He let me stay in the stable. And, you know, it doesn't smell very good, but so help me, it's nice and warm in the stable. And that's one episode of many episodes that happened that winter.
Nothing to it. So when she was interviewed, one of us interviewed Gitta, and we asked her, what do you carry with you from your experiences during our escapes, our many escapes? You know, there were Germany, there was Berlin, there was Belgium, there was France, there was Nice, there was Saint-Martin, there was Valdieri, and then there was Rome. So that covered the entire time. And what Gitta said, would you like to say it? Or do you want me to say it for you? What she said was, I have learned that I will never fall down, and that I always walk straight. So here goes: courage, fear, hope. And where does the love of people come from? The love of people, I know you must feel it. The love of people comes from knowing that if you need help, there will always be somebody who will hear you, even in the worst of times. I will not tell you the story when I was taken to the arrondissement, the place where people were taken, were in Nice. I don't think I want to tell it to you. But when I cried loud and hard, and I said, I have to go home, I cannot stay here, then Vichy gendarme came to me and said, if you stop crying, I will take you home when my work is done. So what was that? That was pity, love, caring. And you know what? When I started to be a psychologist, somebody interviewed me and said, it was Irving Harris, and he said to me, what makes you think you can do this? I said, besides knowledge, there is love, and people always respond to it. So, I want to tell you one more thing. Our mother and Don Bondello and a German convoy of trucks comes together, and I think that'll pull together the entire thing for us, right? Our mother, it is now April 1944, and the Germans are rapidly looking for Jews, rapidly, in the mountains. And wherever you turn around, one other person was taken. So, my mother said, we have to leave. There's no way, we gotta leave. The snows were melting, so you can't hide anymore so well. And so she went to Andreina and she said, Andreina, you must find us somebody who will help us get out of here. And the very next day, Don Bondello came with a camera, took pictures. The next day, he came with false papers and for all of us, and pictures.
And he brought us also some clothes.
And he brought us some clothes. And then we left. And then we left. We went down. I'll make it short. And then we went down the mountain. Our mother took just Gitta and me. There were other families in our area, but we went down. And she comes down, we go down. She comes down, she says to us, our mother was a very beautiful woman. And she had a black felt hat that she took out for any occasion. And whenever we were, no matter where we were, that was the occasion to put on a black felt hat. And she said, girls, stand by the side of the road, and I will make autostop. Hitchhike. And so, of course, she goes on the road, she makes autostop, and lo and behold, after a while, a Jeep appears.
A German convoy, a Jeep and trucks, and a couple of trucks, and they stopped for her.
And they stopped. And my mother, in her best Hochdeutsche Sprache, she goes up to him, and she has our papers, and her paper says that we are Hungarians, and the German says, well, Hungarians and Jews, they're just the same dogs. And my mother says, I have lost my husband in Berlin. And how did he know how she lost her husband in Berlin? He thought in bombardment, in the army, whatever. So comes the convoy, stops. He tells my mother to go sit next to him. What else? I go sit next to her. And Gitta is sent up to sit on a truck that said ammunitions. Anyway, it didn't explode. Obviously, I'm here.
And sure enough, we did arrive in Rome, and on the outskirts of Rome, they let us off, and we continued I don't even remember how we got into Rome, but unfortunately, we came to Rome, and sure enough, they've been picking up all the Jews everywhere, and they were ferocious. It was almost the end of the war, and they knew they were losing, and the German couldn't have been more ferocious in picking up Jews until the very, very, very end. And we ended up surviving in a convent in Rome and liberated in Rome. And the first person our mother saw was an Israeli soldier with the emblems of the Jewish Brigade.